Very good to see
Hello,
you.
Sally.
Very
Good
good
to
to
see
see
you.
you. Oh, Zoom is a lot better than nothing, right? Zoom has become a friend.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom has become a friend, as you said. Yeah, sure. All at the same time, I mean, we've realized how many things we can do by Zoom, but nothing like being next to each other and feeling the other
No,
one, right?
nothing at all. Nothing at all. Well, it's like it's a sort of like almost like a drawing version, isn't it? A sort of cartoon of the other person, but 2 dimensions, but a lot better than no dimensions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, which brings us really to the feeling of this story that we made together. Look at me. Um, and one question that people have asked me repeatedly is that really Javier playing the drums? So I go, yes, it is. So I wondered actually, maybe it'd be helpful for people to know what your relationship really is with the drums and how you feel about making music in that way. Yeah.
Well, I guess I've been very much since I was a little boy. I remember playing the drums with pillows and how do you call the thing that you used to for the wash machine? That was like these things that were big boxes, and then I was banging the boxes and the bed and everything that would make a sound. But I
Yeah.
never had a drum until I was, I don't know, 25, 26. That I could actually access to one drum. But I've
Yeah.
always loved the beats, yeah. And thank God we have the big help of our fellow friend who created Stomp.
Yeah.
Right?
Luke Cresswell.
Look,
Yeah. Yeah.
look, who did an amazing job in helping me to find the rhythms along with you, and we had fun, and also we found a rhythm that I could follow, that it was
Yeah.
not too difficult.
Yeah, but I mean, you're very convincing, and a lot of the sound, the sound that you made is in the film. It was augmented with a couple of different frequencies and so on, but essentially, it's the sound. What we see is what we hear, and
Yeah.
I remember when we were preparing together, and I came to your place in Madrid and saw you had a dedicated room with a drum kit in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
it's like it reminded me that the drums, and that also inspired me actually to write, to make it part of your character, and to really use that skill that you had, because it became very clear to me when I saw you drumming how much
Mhm.
you loved it, and how really it sort of was like a kind of grounding and rooting in the most basic form of music, the most basic
Absolutely.
form of music.
Absolutely. It really is one of those things that helps you to, or helps me in this case, to express myself through the beats, through the rhythm, through something that is not controlled by the mind or the thought, more than something more visceral, which is
Yeah,
also what the character is all about, being visceral, relating to the other by the guts, from the guts.
yeah,
And what happened when you are related to life itself from your guts? It's a good
yeah.
thing, but also it may go to a place where it's out of control, where you need some thinking, you need some order, in order to put yourself on a track that is not about destroying your own self and destroying others. I mean, but that's
Yeah.
another discussion.
Well, it is, but it's important, and because this character as well is having parts of his drum kit taken away, because the director Chris, played by Chris, feels that it's too dominant, the sound. So he as a director is trying to balance the sound of the tap dancer, the extraordinary Savion Glover,
Oh my
and the
God.
sound of the drums, and to get this balance right. But of course, for your character, it's like having part of your body taken away. The drum kit taken away. So this fantastic feeling of confinement, therefore, that's echoed with these cages. And I feel like your drum in it, and your relationship with rhythm, and even the way you walk, actually. I was looking at it the other day and noticing the way you walk out of the space. It's like, it's not the way you normally walk, you know, it's the way this man walks.
Yeah.
And it's like a drum beat. It's step, 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 step. And
Yeah, and also, I guess it's about also what will you. I mean, there are many musicians that would be absolutely fine with their drum set to be taken out by somebody else because that's what the show needs. But I guess the stories about this Leo, which is very much putting a lot of trust in his own manhood, in a very bad understood manhood, a very physical kind of macho thing, when his expression is through his body and his intuitive pulse of rhythm. And when those things are taken out of him, he doesn't know how to cope with that, and he doesn't know how to relate to the space or to the music or to the other with a more sensitive or a more delicate or a more wounded feeling, rather than explode and feeling that he has the right to be who he is and fight for it and gain it by the force. I guess the rhythm of the drum is the symbolism of his own power as a man. So that's why he feels so naked, and he doesn't bear himself being naked, being seen, being felt by others.
Exactly. It's like humiliation, like a
Absolutely.
humiliation, which becomes a kind of explosive feeling inside. And one can really see that in your face in the film. And there's one particular shot where Chris's character has asked you to just do a single beat with your foot because there's nothing else left of the drum kit. and you do it, but you're looking at him like a wounded animal. You know, the expression is one of somewhere between rage and deep wound. And so it becomes such a study of how wound, hurt, and anger are kind of twins in a way, and one is part of the other.
Absolutely.
Of course, that leads us to talking about Chris, which is just such a wonderfully interesting performance that came out of him in this short time, from somebody who we associate with brilliant comedy, with stand-up and with timing and with a relationship with a huge house, you know, which is very different than a relationship with a camera or one other individual. And that sort of the ability then to sort of focus in, but the power struggle between these two characters and the wound, the hurt in a way on his side, and we only understand later why this hurt and what's behind it all. We discover it little by little, but so interesting for me as a director, so interesting to put together two performers who come from these different places. I mean, Chris has done serious film roles as well, but of course, mainly his thing is stand-up thus far. And, you know, you have occupied a very big charismatic space in the history of cinema. And, you know, that's what you bring, is that feeling of presence into the screen. So to have these two different presences together was really fascinating to work with. How was it for you collaborating with Chris during this experience?
Well, I have to say that everything that happened to be related to this beautiful movie that we did, Look at Me, it was a pleasure, because first of all, you are the captain. You made us all feel very protected and very taken care of, and listened. We felt that we were listened by you, which is very important. Also, we were working in a very harsh conditions because it was super freezing cold outside New York in December, and we were very much focused on doing what we need to do, nothing else, nothing more. Just do it precisely. Boom, go like an arrow. Boom, laser focus, and I've always felt that Chris was super in tune with that rhythm. That, as you said, maybe he or I thought he won't be too comfortable with, because one imagined that that's not his natural rhythm, since he's an amazing stand-up comedian that, as you said, put thousands and thousands of people on big stadiums, and he has his own rhythm, right?
Yeah.
He controls his own rhythm, his own, but he was so much in tune with all of us as a crew, as a team, and I felt super comfortable with him, and I felt very honored, honestly, to be in that company, because I was witnessing his process as an actor, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic in the movie.
He's really good and very delicate and
Yes.
very subtle and very sensitive
Yes.
in the performance, and just so interesting. I mean, the collaborative. Go on.
Sorry, Sally. And it's funny because, of course, there were moments where you guys were working on the camera stuff and we were waiting, and then he will become the comedian, and then he will he will say things that will make me laugh so hard and so much, and I will be like, no, let's go back to the thing that we have to go, and he will go back like that. Boom. But he's so brilliant in the humor. It's amazing.
It's great, and I think the collaborative process in making something is so interesting, because some of it one can't define. You know, you have the script, you have the elements, you have the design, wonderful design by Carlos Conti in this instance, that's happening in a kind of, again, very physical way, like these two people getting locked into their spaces, to the cages, and we all know what the associations of cages are, but it's how all these elements come together, the movement, the music, the performances, the visual, in a short form. Now, this is what was so interesting for me. At the beginning of my working life, I made a lot of short films. That's what often happens. It's like stepping stones towards making longer ones. But to go after making many features, to go back to a short form and see how demanding it is actually, and how precise you have to be. There's no room for any fat. Everything has to be lean, like a lean, mean machine. And it has to have clear story points and no explanations, just surprises. You need to get the information, but there isn't time to give you big backstory. You just need little clues here, little clues there, so it all makes sense. So terribly interesting. Have you, I don't know the answer to this, have you performed in short films before?
Yeah. I've done many when I was starting, and then also I would say in the middle of the 90s, I did like, I remember like 4 or 5 in a row. Some of them were pretty good. As one of them was directed by my cousin Miguel Bardem, the son of Juan Antonio Bardem, and it was called The Mother, and it was my mother, who was an actress, and me. And it was a story of a man, a son who wants to kill his mother. And it was a very dark comedy, like in the realms of Berlanga and Bardem, of Spanish dark humor. And it was rewarded by the best short film with the Goya Award back in the day. And as you said, you need to be very focused. No, you need to do, as you said, to put the fat out and just the lean meat.
True to the point. Exactly. So I think the short form, and especially now that people are absorbing films in so many different ways, streaming or on the internet, or on their computers, or dipping in and out in a way, people have become very familiar with and like actually shorter forms. And so, as well as long forms, I mean, there's room for every length of form, but short forms are interesting too, very interesting. You can have very big themes in a short form. Another thing that people have been interested to ask is the struggle between the director and the performer in this story, whether I'd ever experienced anything like that, or whether you'd ever experienced anything like that. And I think, everything one writes, everything one does, you bring some personal experience. And I think I've never known this exact experience, but of course I've experienced the in a way, the tussle, it's not a fight. It's you're both struggling for the truth in the situation from the outside and from the inside. And then you find the sweet path somewhere in that. Does that ring a bell for you?
Oh, yeah, it rings a bell. Yeah, and I think we were there, you and I, and I think here we are years later talking about it and laughing about it because we know what it is. It's a process. It's a creative process where two people, just because we are talking about both of us,
Yeah.
but we can include everybody in the crew, every head of departments. Everybody wants to do their best, and there's no time. And at the same time, there is a director, only one person, in this case, you, who needs to say when, how, where, and why. And for that, we all need to bow our heads and follow your directions. And as an actor, sometimes I feel the need of knowing more in order to try to give you what you need. And that's basically my struggle all the time with every director. Like, give me more information, give me more space to give you what you need, not to do what I want, but to give you what you need. So I understand better what's my purpose, what am I adding to the story that you want to tell in the overall. And I guess for me, that's a very welcome creative struggle. And in this case with you, it was a beautiful dance. We jumped into it, we worked on it, we were naked to each other, artistically speaking, like, okay, this is me, this is what I do, these are my faults, these are my virtues. How do we cope with this? Let's just forget about other stuff, let's work together. And I love that. I love that. Sometimes it's not easy because, as we all know, movies are money, are tons of money in movement. It's like money rules, unfortunately or fortunately, who knows. So when you are taking the time and say, let's stop for a moment and let's discuss this, everybody freaks out because there is no time for that.
But there is. I mean, it's like, in order to be quick, you have to be slow for a moment to reflect. Otherwise, you're just being hasty and rushing. Similarly, even in a short film and with a short time to shoot, like the 4 days that we had, in a funny way, you have to create the illusion that there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time to do the right thing. And just try and avoid doing the wrong thing.
And you were amazing in that aspect. And I have to say that because most of the time when I'm working with any director and I see the pressure they are under, especially with time, I go, if it was me, and I guess that's why I don't do movies, I don't direct movies, I don't know how I would do it, because there will be a moment where I would go like, no, I need more time. But you were like making sure everybody was fine, relaxed, feeling that they have all the time in the world, while we all knew that, guys, we need to keep moving. But we never felt the process stopped for a second.
No.
We were always advancing, achieving.
And because we had preparation.
Yes.
Okay, the shoot was very short, but we had spent time before discussing everything, rehearsing the drums and so on. And similarly, I had some meetings with Chris, so we knew where we were. But still, I mean, I think that feeling that you've described very well, of this kind of pushing and pulling and tussle and everything, it's a kind of turmoil, isn't it? It's a kind of beautiful turmoil. Out of which eventually comes the image and comes the action. And you also used the word dance, and I think that's very important, because in the end, it's a kind of give and take choreography. And literally, this film ends, the last image is a very tender kind of dance between you and Chris, which is very beautiful, I think, to see two such strong and powerful men in their own right expressing in the end vulnerability and tenderness for each other, the masks lifting, and it coming down to the basic need to survive and to love, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So very, very beautiful. So I think Javier, that's our 15 minutes of talking, and that's a very nice word to end it on, love. And thank you very much for the collaboration. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sally. It will always be in my heart. The memory that I had in my heart, I will always hold as a treasure. The moment that we spent together, artistically speaking, and physically, of course, and mentally. But I mean, artistically, how far we went with what we needed, and how brave we both were in order to hold our hands and say, "Let's jump together." So yes. I love that. That's what any creative process should be about.